Well, hello, everybody. Pastor Randy here. Welcome to Making It Simple. Hope to find you doing well today, wherever you are in this world. It's a blessing and an honor to be with you, as it always is every single day that I get a chance to sit down here and just talk to you a little bit. You know, the premise of Making It Simple is conversational style teaching. While indeed we're going through a verse by verse understanding of the book of John and potentially possibly others as time goes by, interspersed within that is our conversation about not only what does it mean, but how does it apply to me? What does it matter to me? One of the great lessons that we've seen in these last few verses is the refusal of help, even when it's right in front of you. The refusal of truth, even when it's right in front of you. We do have a problem with that today. There's no question about that. We see the exposure of many, many things, but the blinders are on, the fingers are in the ears, or the cotton balls, or the earplugs, or whatever the case. And it's very stressful when you know and when you can see and others won't or refuse. We see the message of Jesus here. He's speaking to the leadership at that time, the Pharisees and also that had determined without a question they were going to get their way or else. And they didn't care what happened along the way or who it hurt or what it created, even if it caused themselves problems. I've been reading several articles over the last few days of modern things going on, and it's a mirror image. Many that are willing to, in essence, shoot themselves in the foot in order to advance their cause. Even now, they'll walk with a limp forever. It's hard to process that. It's really hard to understand why we get to that place. But then again, it's not, because we go back to the issue, and it's a hard issue, friends. There's no way around that. That's not preachy. That's not judgmental. It's fact. And when one's heart is not in the right place, meaning filled with compassion and filled with love and filled with care for others, which can only come from a surrender to the Lord, from a surrender of that heart and that life to Christ and the acceptance of what He's done. When we close that off and determine we're going to do it our own way, we can do that up to a certain degree. But then humanity kicks in, emotions and our natural inclinations towards certain things like selfishness and ego and pride and all the different things. And it just turns into a mess. So Jesus has been addressing this group of people about what's going on and why what they're doing is just not okay. And it wasn't because he just disagreed with them. It wasn't because, they had a difference of opinion. It was because the result of what they were doing was damaging to other people that they were influencing. See, people of influence, positions of influence matter. Regardless of what that position is. It may be the shift supervisor at a canning factory. It may be the president of a nation. It may be the governor of a state. It may be the pastor of a church. It may be the sheriff of a law enforcement division, department, or whatever. If you are a person of influence, what you say and what you do absolutely matters. That's what this is all about. Is calling that into accountability, calling that into question, saying, wait a minute, if you have been given the green light, the authority, the say of people's lives and their well-being, physically, mentally, emotionally, all of it, and in many cases spiritually, that's a big deal. And you shouldn't take that lightly. And therefore, the things that you say and the things that you do, they absolutely matter. That's why it's so frustrating and so difficult to see the things happening right now with those that have been given, literally given, that kind of power and control over the lives of people in our nation and all around the world, in fact. And they either abuse that or they use it for all the wrong reasons. Many, when confronted, get defensive. This group was no different. And so when he told them, as we closed off yesterday, you don't have to accept this. You don't have to take the help that has been offered you. And as I titled our message yesterday, help refused is not help received. What he's telling them, he said, you can refuse this. I want to help you. But if you don't take it, you will die right where you are. Now, that was not a threat. That was not a threat at all. That was fact. We equate that to drowning. If you are drowning, gasping for air, going under, taking in half the lake, whatever's going on, and you're kicking and screaming and trying to hold on at every possible cost for life, and someone throws you that round life preserver thing, or a rope, or a branch, or whatever it is that they can get to you, a stretched out hand from the side of a boat or whatever, and the help is there, the offer is there, and you say no. Nope, I'm going to do it on my own. You're going to die right there. That's not being comical. That's not being mean. That's just true. And so the Lord is trying to tell them that, and they're angry now. They're hot. And they're fuming. And so they say in verse 25, who are you? Now, it wasn't them actually asking his name. It wasn't them actually asking anything personal. This is what they were saying. Who are you to tell me anything? That's what it was. Who are you to tell us? I mean, look at how smart we are. Look at how pious we are. Look at how learned we are. I mean, we're scholars and teachers and we've got these big hats and these big titles, and we've got. Who are you to tell us anything? It wasn't who are you in your name. They didn't care about that because they already knew. They knew exactly who he was, and they knew. Other than that, who he was. They just refused the truth. They would have no part of it because they had determined in their own wisdom, no one is going to challenge me because I am above that. I have reached a different level, and I will not be called into question. I will not be rebuked. I will not be spoken to because I'm above that. And so they're in essence challenging the position of Christ. They're saying, who are you? You can't tell me anything. And his answer was, I'm the same person that I told you that I was, right from the beginning. Why is that important? Because God never changes. You see, his answer remains the same every single time. Whether it is yes, no, wait, whatever, it doesn't matter what the answer is. The reality of it is it will always remain the same because God is the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. And so Jesus tells him, I'm the same person that I was yesterday, today, and tomorrow. My answer will always be the same. The consistency that we get in that also helps us understand why a relationship with Christ is so important. Because unlike any other thing in our life, Jesus is the one thing that remains consistent. Relationships change, whether it's multiple different reasons. People move, age, time, whatever. There's all kinds of different reasons that relationships change. They just don't remain consistent. That's just true. The weather doesn't remain consistent. One day it's raining, one day it's sunshine, one day it's snowing. You just never know. The wind is blowing today, it's not blowing tomorrow. It's in, it's out, up and down. It's never consistent. A relationship with Christ can be, and it will always be on His part. Maybe not on ours. Sometimes our love grows cold. Sometimes we get a little too busy. Sometimes we start doing other stuff. The same thing that happens with relationships with other people. We start getting other things in the way, and we forego some of the important things. And we do the same thing with our relationship with Christ. But again, His part will never change. If we drift away and we come back, we'll still find the same Jesus. If we completely walk away and come back, we'll still find the same Jesus. And this is what He was trying to get them to see. My answer is not going to change. No matter how much you say, no matter what you do, no matter how big a fit you throw, no matter how much you are rude or sarcastic or ugly to me, my answer will always be the same. It reminds me of a story of a dear friend. I want to share this story one day. I'm not going to do it today and take up the whole broadcast, but in essence, he was a part of something that was not okay. And he would later come to that understanding and have a tremendous heart difference. But he was in a particular group that really promoted hatred and whatever. And they ran across this one gentleman that they continued to bother. And I love what this man said in return. He said, I don't care what you say to me. I don't care what you do to me. There's nothing you can do, and there's nothing you can say that will make me hate you, because Jesus lives in my heart. That's powerful. That's what a relationship with Christ can do for everybody. And this is all He was trying to do for these guys. He wasn't trying to change the way that they governed in the sense of their, taking them down a notch. He wanted them to see it from their heart. And they refused, because their heart had now become a void of darkness. It was filled with self and arrogance and pride and all the things. And they weren't willing to receive anything else. It's my way or no way. So he goes on to them in verse 26. He says, I've got a lot of things to say to you, and I could judge you very, very easily based on what I'm seeing. But He who sent me is true. He speaks of the Father. And I speak to the world those things which I have heard of Him. So what He's telling them is, I'm not just going to tell you what I think. I'm going to tell you what's true. Do with it what you will. That's on you. In other words, you're not just rejecting me when you say no. And I tell people this all the time. If I ask you to do something that I feel that God has given me the unction to share, then you're not telling me no. You're not telling Pastor Andy no, because I'm nobody. I don't profess to be. You're telling God no. If God puts something in your life and in your heart, says, I really want you to do this, whatever it may be helping a neighbor, it may be giving to this cause, it may be all kinds of different things. You say, I'm not going to do that. You're telling God no. You're not telling the person no, the function no, or anything else. You're telling God no. And this is what Jesus is trying to share with this group. You're in a powerful, powerful position to influence people, to help people. And you're not doing it. So while I could give you a lot of opinion and a lot of thought on that from a human perspective, I'm not going to do that. I'm sharing with you what God has given me to share with you. And you're not telling me no. You're telling Him no. Because He is the one who sent me, the one who gave me these words to give to you. But you reject the truth. You don't want to hear that. You don't want to hear the truth. Therefore, you reject God. Now, we can already assume, and in some cases it's okay to assume, and this would be one of them, they were about ready to explode. Because no one had ever questioned their authority like this. No one had stood up to them like this. Nobody. And here's this one who now they know had the authority and the ability to do it. And they couldn't stand it because he wouldn't back down. But the great thing about the way that he handled it wasn't ranting and raving and stomping and having a fit. to reciprocate what they were doing. No, no, not at all. He gave them the truth, and they couldn't stand it. It's much like that line, and I've used it before. A Few Good Men, Jack Nicholson said, "You can't handle the truth." Here's where they were. They couldn't handle the truth because that mirror experience was way too personal. Because you see, that mirror didn't look just at the surface. It didn't look at the cosmetics. It looked at the heart. And they did not like what they saw because it was ugly. It was really, really ugly. But they didn't want to admit that. They didn't want to admit that, not at all. And in fact, they were not going to admit it. It says, they understood not that he spoke of them of the Father. They didn't want to. And the reason they didn't receive this message is because they'd already closed their hearts. In other words, it was not a receptive vessel. It was the proverbial rock with the water being poured on it. It wasn't sinking in because they were never going to allow it to. They had conceded, friends. They had given it over. It's my way or no way. And there was no penetration there, but God never stopped trying. He was going to give them every opportunity so that in the fact, just like he told them, you can continue here and you will die here, but it will be without excuse. It will never be that one could stand before the Creator and say, well, I didn't. No, you had every opportunity availed unto you that could have possibly been given, and you said no every single time. This is where they were at. They didn't want to hear the truth. In fact, they hated the truth. Well, Pastor Andy, that sounds like 2021. Yeah. It's history repeating itself, friends. It's hard to see. It really is. And when you begin to understand your relationship with the Lord and you begin to see things differently, you begin to see things through the eyes of Christ, you ask yourself, how on earth could this person or this group or what, how could they not see this? We're not talking about conspiracies and we're not talking about all kinds of made up stuff. We're talking about reality. Reality. Something standing in front of you that is bright, blazing red. And it's right there. And the person beside you would argue with you until you know it's blue or purple or whatever the other color is, just to not agree. It's amazing. I've never seen anything like it in my life. It's unbelievable. But this is what was going on. The truth was right there before them. They wanted no part of it because it didn't go along with their plan. They liked ultimate control. They liked having that say. They liked people listening to them. They liked people obeying their commands and their rules and doing so without question. Well, the temple said, sounds a little familiar, doesn't it? See, we got to get back to what did God say. Now, what did Pastor so-and-so say, or reporter so-and-so say, or political figure so-and-so? What did God say? See, we have mixed that up in a proverbial salad, and it's lost underneath all the extras that are put on there. It's hard to process, really, when we begin to think about it. But that's exactly where we are. The clarity of the teachings of Christ are just that, if we will leave them alone and go back to what, it's oftentimes there's a phrase used sometimes that's, just get back to thus saith the Lord. Obviously, we don't speak that way, but the manner there, the understanding there is this. If God said it and God doesn't change, then it's still applicable right now. And it's still just as valid as it was the first time it was said. When God said, you will not, you shall not, thou shalt not, that's still adhered to right now. That's not changed. But we miss that because we don't want to hear that. We miss that because, well, that doesn't fit into my agenda or my program. I want it this way. Doesn't matter what. It does matter. It does matter because it doesn't bring value to what you're doing when it's not validated. And that holds true in our personal individual lives, and it certainly holds true in those that are in positions of responsibility. What is said matters. That is why we teach and do what we do right here on Making It Simple in this manner, is breaking it down and looking at it from a very, very common sense, down to earth point of view. You will not hear me use big words. You will not hear me go over anybody's head. I am talking with you, to you, never at you, because I want it to make sense. I want it to be something that whether you're 3 or 103, it's like, oh yeah, I didn't really think about that. Not in a guilt or a shaming way, but in an understanding way. Like, okay, now that makes sense. I remember it this way. When I was in high school, I really, really struggled with different math, algebra, geometry, whatever the case. It was very, very difficult for me. I can't explain why. It was just not something that I understood. I got the basics, no problem. Adding, subtracting, dividing, whatever. All that was fine. You get into the heavier levels, it just was not my thing. It didn't click. I can't understand it. I think it was 9th grade, 10th grade, whatever I can't remember. But algebra came along and it kicked my butt. It was something that I was so lost at. It made no sense to me. And at that time, the teacher of that particular course, I think it was Algebra 2, if I'm not mistaken. And again, it's nothing personal, but I didn't get it. They did not explain it well at all. It made no sense to me. I would have just been just as good to have been hearing Russian or Greek or something else that I had no comprehension of at all. And so I did not do well. In fact, I didn't pass that class. This was a long time ago where passing and failing actually mattered. I was devastated over the idea that I didn't do that. But I was excited to learn that I could take it again as a senior. So I did. I did. Even with underclassmen with me there, I'm right there learning. But there was a brand new teacher. And she explained it in a way that I didn't. It clicked. She simplified it. She made it simple. I passed that year with flying colors. In fact, I had an A the whole entire year. It wasn't that I didn't know how to do it. I didn't have proper instruction. Many times today, that's the problem. We have people talking over everybody's head or using their own spin and agenda on it to make it curtail to a certain format or a certain doctrine. You won't find that here at Making It Simple. This is not about any one particular thing. This is about what did God say. Those that were confronted with the truth in this time, they hated it. Why? Because that makes you look inside. And you can't deny what's there, even if you want to. And so the response was to get angry. The response was to, I'm going to eliminate that so I don't have to hear it anymore. It didn't make the problem go away. See, friends, it's a heart matter. It always has been. It always will be. And that's the issue that we're seeing right now with so many people walking around with their fingers in their ears and their eyes closed because they don't want to hear it and they don't want to see it. But it's never going to make it go away. It is a matter of the heart. And the only one, and I mean the only one who can fix that is Jesus. And I believe that as good as I'm sitting in this chair and talking to you. So it is my honor to be with you. I hope and pray you have a phenomenal, awesome day, that something that is said here today will be a benefit to you. Thank you. Love you. Praying for you every day. And Lord willing, I'll see you tomorrow.